To my channel. So today I'll be showing you guys how to make, because someone commented on one of my videos to show you guys how to make a ruffle skirt. It's a pencil skirt with ruffle on two sides. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to do that. So normally for that, I think you might need maybe, let's say, 2 yards of fabric. So the first thing you're going to do is to measure the widest part of your lower body, which is normally your hip. So your hip divided by 4. So for me, I'm working with, let's say, hip of 40 divided by 4. That's going to be so divided by 4, that's going to be 10 plus 1, that's going to be uh 11. So you're going to divide your hip measurement by 4 and then add extra 1 inch to it, or 1.5, depending on how much seam allowance you want to have. And then the next thing you're going to do is to check the length you're working with. So let's say I'm working with 19 here, so I'm just going to mark that here. And then remember, I'm going to mark from my waist to my hip. So my waist to hip is normally like 10 inches, right? But I want to have 2 inches of band, so I'm going to mark. So because the band is going to start at my waist, remember. So my band is 2 inches, so which means instead of my waist to, so I'm going to mark my waist to hip is 10, right? But I'm going to put it this way, as if I've added the band, which is somewhere here. So I'm going to just mark that 10 inches here. But then if I bring down my tape, you see I have 8 inches here. Then if I take it back up, that 2 inches is added back. So my waist to hip measurement is added. So my waist measurement I'm working with is 32 divided by 4, that's going to be 8, plus extra 2 inches, 1 inch of darting and 1 inch of seam allowance, so that's going to be 10. You're going to connect that two together. Just normal basic pencil skirts is what you're going to be marking here, pattern. So you're going to come down here 1 inch, because you can't just cut it into this part, it will be pointed at the hip. So you're going to come in 1 inch so that the waist will blend in. And then because the same measurement that you have at the hip is what you have at the end, but at the end you're going to subtract 1 inch from this part here, and then you blend it in after that 1 inch. So that's basically how you're going to cut your pencil skirt. Go in here, come down by half an inch, right? Come down by half an inch, and then you're going to blend it in. And then after blending it in, you might want to also go ahead and add your half an inch on top of it, right? Just tracing half an inch for the seam allowance to add the band, but also remember to add your seam allowance for folding the end, right? So after this, you do go ahead and cut this out. Using this pattern again, you're going to trace out your back pattern, and for the back pattern, just cut this whole thing out. But for the back pattern, you're going to add about 1 inch at the center part. This is going to be for your zip. So that's basically how you cut it. So guys, after that, you also go ahead and mark in your darts. So I'm going to come in here by 4 inches. You can use your nipple to nipple measurement, right? Divided by 2. So let's say your bust point is 8. You use 8 divided by 2. That's going to be 4. So you're going to bring down that 4 here. And then your dart is going to stop 2 inches before the hip line. So that's somewhere here. So my dart is going to be about 6 inches. So you're going to mark that down here. Mark half an inch on each side and then connect it. So this is going to be your dart. You're going to notch it and pass the dart all over to even the back panel. So guys, so because I want to be making a lot of videos, right? And if I keep making the videos on big fabrics, right, I can't wear everything. So I said, let me just, so to get more videos done for you guys, I'm going to try to be explaining it on a bigger fabric, but instead cutting it on a smaller fabric. That's way I can push out more videos for you guys and show you guys different things. But I'll always try to explain it and show you guys how much you will need if you're making it on a bigger pattern. But let's say this is the skirt here. You can see I've cut out everything. You see I've cut out the waist to hip, the dart, everything. I've cut it out, shaped it on the side. So this is the waist, this is the bottom, and then that half an inch, I'm also going to go ahead and cut that out also for the front pattern. So you see what I was saying, you're going to use your front pattern here to cut out the back pattern. So this is the 1 inch I was telling you guys to leave for the back panel here. And then after that, you're going to notch. You see I notched it before, but when I cut this out, it came off. So you're going to notch it here so that you know where you're going to transfer your dart. And you see, I use this front panel to transfer the dart to the back panel also, you see. So the dart is still on the same line. So I just did it this way and notched it for the back. So you see my two back panel and then my front panel here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut the ruffle I'm going to put at the side of this here. So guys, you see, I've gone ahead and put in the darts for the front pattern of this skirt here. You see the darts. I'm just showing you guys. You see where it is here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to take this here. So you're going to go ahead and cut out the pleat or ruffle that you're going to be using for the side. It depends on you what you want to use. You can use ruffle, you can use flounce, you can use gather, you can use pleat. It depends on you what you want to use. So for me, I'm going to be using this fabric to show you guys. So if you're going to be using pleat, you can choose any length you want to. I'm going to attach also how to cut the flounce. So you can use a very long flounce. It depends on you. And then I'm going to just put this here. So I'm going to be using pleat. So what I'm going to do is just put this in between, and then I'm going to just pleat it. You can pin it down if you want to, but don't push it. Remember, your seam allowance is already a lot on this side, so you might want to bring it in half an inch into the skirt, because remember you left about 1.5 of seam allowance when you were cutting this. So except you added the same amount of seam allowance on your pattern, on this flounce or whatever you're using, maybe gather, then don't push it to the end. Bring it a little closer to the seam and leave the end this way. Like what I'm saying is, let's say your seam allowance is this much, right? This is what you left for your seam allowance, right? You can't push this whole thing into this part here. What you have left will be very small. So that's what I'm saying. You can just bring it in a little bit, like leave about half an inch out. You understand? So let's say you have seam allowance. This is your seam allowance here, right? This is the seam allowance you have. So instead of using this whole 1.5 here, you can just make your gather pass in between. So I'm going to make it like halfway through, so that I won't finish up the whole of my fabric inside of the seam allowance, if that makes any sense. So what I'm going to do is just put it in here and then pleat it. You can use lining instead of folding the end. So you can, whatever length, so you're going to measure the length of your skirt from the waist to the end here. So for me, let's say the length of my skirt is 7 inches, right? You're going to use ×2 of that, or which is going to be 14 as the length of your flay, or you can use ×2.5, which is going to be about around 18 or so. So it depends on you what you want to use. So and then whatever you're using, cut it in two parts, and then, or you can use lining as the other side of it, so that you don't have the wrong side out. So if you use lining to join the ends and then put it in, let's say you cut, this is what I'm using, right? Then I cut out a lining of that same length. I'll close up the end, right? Flip it inside out and iron it. So that way I won't have any wrong side showing. Even if there's any wrong side showing, it will be like a black lining on the other end. You understand? So what I'm going to do now is just, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to attach this here just to show you guys how to put it in. So I'm going to just take this here. So guys, you see what I'm using? Instead, I'm going to be pleating mine. So I'm just going to take it this way, pleat it, and then just pin it down. And then when you're done, right, you're going to use, I'm using this one here. When you're done, I'm going to just use this. I've put the pleats, I've put the dart at the back of my skirt. So I'm just going to use this one here to cover this side, right? And then I'm going to sew it closed. And when I open it, you'll see that my ruffle is in between the side of my skirt, right? So I'm going to sew it closed and do the same thing on the other side. So guys, you see, I've put in the pleats here. I know you guys might still not understand what I was saying. Let me say it again. So what I'm saying is that if this is what you want to use as your flay, right? You want to use something like this as your flay. Let me just cut it out. You want to use something that is this long, like just imagine it as being this long, and you want to use it as your flay. What I'm saying is cut another version of that, right? Cut another replica of that one, and then what you're going to do is close up the end, right? Close up the end. So I'm going to close up one end now. So you've closed up the end, and then you close it back up again this way, you see? That way when you close it up this way now, you see the two sides are showing the nice fabric, right? But if you see this one I'm using now, the back of the fabric is like plain, because I just folded it this way, like how you normally fold the end of your clothes. So one side, the side of this, the side facing the front part of the skirt is showing this nice part of this color, like the color of the fabric. But if you see the wrong side, when you flip over, you see that the wrong side is showing the inside of the fabric, right? You see, you can see the color because I just folded the end. So if you want it to show like nice color both ways, what you can do is just cut two patterns for each side, right? Two long patterns for each side, and then you're going to flip it this way, iron it, and then the way it is now, you can go ahead and just start pleating it. You see, if you pleat it with this now and then join it inside of the skirt, right? Or you can use lining on one side if you want the back side to be, let's say your fabric is not enough, you don't mind one side showing like plain black, you can also do that. Then use lining on one side, you see. So now when the wind blows, whichever way it blows, it's showing like a nice fabric all both sides. But you see, with this my illustration, if the wind blows this way, you're seeing the wrong side of this color. If you don't mind that and your fabric is not enough, then work with this one. But if you want like a very neat pattern, what I'm saying is just join the end inside, go ahead, fold it and iron it, and then when it's this way now, you can go ahead and just use this now as your pleat and fix it inside of your skirt, right? If you fix this inside of your skirt, then the both sides will be showing nice colors. So now that we are done with this, you see, this is the back of the skirt. It's showing this wrong color, but it doesn't matter. This is just a sample. So what I'm going to do now is to close up the back of my skirt and leave my zip allowance, right? I'm going to close up the back. You see my darts at the back of the skirt, so you see that on the two sides of the back, that in front. I'm going to also close up the back pattern here, and then I'm also going to go ahead and put in my band. So guys, I've closed up the back now. All I have here is like my zip allowance. So imagine this being the waist of the skirt. This is the end of the skirt. You see my dart. You see my dart at the back, closed up. Only need to put in the zip. So what I have now is the band. For making adult size, right? Remember we calculated our band as 2 inches, 2 inches of band. So if you want to have 2 inches of band, you're going to cut 5 inches width of this here, right? You're going to cut 5 inches width for your band fabric. So what you're going to do after cutting it is go ahead and iron in the stay. After ironing in the stay, you're going to now fold it into two. Let's say, like, remember what I said, you're going to cut in 5 inches of width, and 5 inches of width, when you fold it into two, you're going to have 2.5 here and 2.5 on the back, right? Because if this is 5 inches and I fold it into two, I'm going to have 2.5 here, 2.5 here. So the 0.5 is what I'm going to just flip inside here as my half an inch to fold the end, and then the other 0.5 on the other side is going to flip inside also. So after that, I'm going to have exactly that 2 inches I calculated. So now I'm just going to go ahead and start from the back. Just make sure that you've measured your waist and it fits the measurement that you want. Measure your hip and it fits the measurement that you're working with. So you're going to start from one side of the back here, and then you're going to put this in between. You see, folded end, folded end. You're going to put this in between, like your skirt is going to run in between the band, and then you go ahead and stitch it all the way to the other side. So guys, our skirt is done. You see, when I was attaching the band, I made sure that my flap also fits into it. So I made the flap to face back, right? So the flap is inside of the band, but it's facing backwards. So if you see, this is the skirt if I open it up, but you see inside of the, because I know when you get to this side, you'll be thinking, should I move it to face forward or should I move it to move backwards? Just inside of the band, make sure that it's facing back. It doesn't matter because it will still stand. It doesn't matter. But if it's facing, if you pull it and sew it this direction, it won't look nice. So just face it back. It doesn't matter. So you see, this is what I did also on this side. So you see, let me just show you guys what I'm saying. Inside of the band, you sew it back. This is the front of my skirt. So all you have to do now is to go ahead and tuck this part in and finish the end of your skirt. You want the flare to fit into this band. Another thing you can do, if you don't want your flare to fit into the band, you can also start adding, so when you're sewing it, like, let me flip it to the right side. So when you're sewing it, you can just come down by 1 inch before your band, right? So when you're putting this into the side seam, like how I showed you guys before, so when you're putting it into the side seam, you can come down by 1/2 inch, so that you will be able to put your band, and this flay will not go into the band. So if you don't want it to go into the band, and you want it to start at from the beginning where it starts, you can see this beginning part of it. Like, I mean, if you don't want it to flap into the band, right? You just want the beginning to look just like this, right? You want the beginning to show up this way. Then what you can do is, when you're putting in this flay, when you're putting it, you can come down, skip about 1/2 inch or 1 inch, and just come down and start putting in your flay, so that when you put in your band, it doesn't affect it. And then also at the end here, you can also stop about 1.5 before the end, so that you can be able to fold it and this doesn't interfere, like the flay at the end doesn't come in. So that means at the beginning you will have this clean end here, and then at the end you also have this clean end. What it means is that whatever you're using to sew, right, you're going to go ahead, close one end of it here, and then to the other end, like, you know, this is supposed to be longer, the ruffle is supposed to be longer, you're also going to close up that end too, so that as you're pleating, so that means when you fold it inside out, and then you keep on pleating and pleating and pleating and pleating, right, when you get to at the beginning, you have this clean end here, this clean top part here that is not inside of the band, because you came down 1 inch before you started putting it in here, and then you also stopped about 1.5 before you started putting it in here. So that means when you fold this in here, right, let's say you folded the end of the skirt, and then you stopped 1 inch before the end of the skirt, that means this part is also going to look this way, and it's going to come out clean. So that's basically how you're going to do it. So that's basically it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.